In this video, the best gravel ride in the Ochils, the line of hills that pretty much separates Highland Scotland from the lowlands. I'm being shown around by one of Scotland's most successful extreme triathletes and adventure racers, Sean McFarlane.
Well, we're biking from the village of Dollar up to the highest peak in the Ochil Hills at 721 metres.
And of course he has many of the Strava segments on this ride.
I have a few.
We're going through a quiet glen where I'll fall off. We'll use the wind farm access track to get high in the hills. And we'll reach the highest point around.
Mountain biking.
So should I be scared about this?
No, not at all. Not at all. There's not a race. It's I want you to have a good time. So fundamentally, I'm going to make sure you do that. So whatever suits you. I
but
think
you're so much fitter than me.
No, I don't think that's true. I've seen your channel and you do that. Those big days, time on your feet, walking through marsh and all that. You might not be first up a mountain in a race, but you can do this easily.
Okay. Still concerned. We're leaving the town of Dollar on a crisp autumn morning. My word, look at those colours. Climbing quickly and steeply. We pause to take in some local history. Not the castle, but one of Danny McCaskill's early downhill tracks.
This is a Dollar downhill track, so this has been here for probably 30 years. It was built by Stu Thompson, who's a very well-known video maker. He worked with Danny McCaskill, and he was involved in a club called the Clan that was based in Dollar way back. And he built this trail with some friends, and some young kids recently have been reinstating it. I occasionally run down or up it. I wouldn't take a bike down here, but other people do, and it's great.
These hills are new to me, and while they're not Munro height, they're not small. We're cycling up a Corbett, Ben Clwch, and this is our route. From Dollar, we're using a classic mountain bike route through Glen Key. There's a bit of road riding, then a mix of tarmac and gravel up through the wind farm. We'll head onto open hillside to reach the summit, retrace our tracks and descend the Silver Glen. In the town of Alva, we'll pick up a cycleway back to Dollar. I was expecting firmer ground, but lots of autumn rain has made the tracks muddy and slippery, and I have the wrong tyres. So let me just tell you a little bit about my friend Sean. Second in the very first Celtman. He's an extreme triathlete, an adventure racer. He's actually one of the most successful in Scotland. He doesn't really like being called a pro, but he's as close as you can get to being a pro. I think he really does it all through making films about the sport and writing, loads and loads of writing for magazines, newspapers. You'll often see his byline. Can you ride through this, do you think?
Not very well though.
He also has a film production business. He's a manager of various athletes. So he's really at the top end of the game. I'm just really fortunate to have worked with people like Sean through my day job, that I get to ride with him, and really pleased he'll help us out on the channel with, I was going to say with things like this, I'm not so sure about things like this, but with some of the other things we'll be doing in time. It's really going to broaden out our scope, and I hope you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I think up until what we've done now is probably better and more suited to a mountain bike. There's a classic Dollar loop where you come from Dollar and you come along here and then head back along the top. And that really is done on a mountain bike, and it's actually the first ever thing I really did 30 years ago that got me into outdoors and exercise and endurance type things.
There's a very short section of road, then the gravel bikes come into their own. Still on tarmac, but away from most traffic, we climb past two reservoirs. We're now in behind the main part of the Ochils, gradually climbing as the views open up around us. Hello ladies, you well? Fine, thank you. I'm talking to sheep. Tarmac becomes gravel as we enter the wind farm, and the climbing continues. The turbines point towards us, so the wind is at our backs. This is the first time I've ever ridden through a wind farm. I suppose this really is gravel. It's certainly rough roads, even though you've got all this man-made tackle all around.
Yeah, there's been a massive rise in gravel biking in recent years in the UK, and I just think this is a fantastic opportunity for the power companies to come together with access officers and cyclists, gravel bike community, to put in some great tracks which they've got, but also increase access to them and responsible access. When we speak to some of the power companies about gravel biking on their trails, it's kind of mixed messages. Some of them say that's okay, some of them say, oh, there's ice on the turbines in winter, people could get hurt, etc, etc. There needs, in my mind, to be more dialogue between the power companies and the community about these trails, because they are fabulous for gravel biking.
I have to say I rather like wind farms. I had expected this to be an awful lot noisier because of what I'd heard about wind farms, you know, people who live near them. These mustn't be as big because, well, listen, there's not a lot of noise until you're right underneath.
So from here we're more or less at the end of the wind farm trail. We've got a little bit more to do, and then we're going to do effectively a push, not for long, maybe 5 minutes. It is bikeable on a mountain bike, but probably not a gravel bike, up to our first peak of the day, which is Ben Buck. Local knowledge?
There hasn't been an awful lot of hiker bike on this trip, and that's been good. So a little bit, yeah, it's not too bad. Just a quick word about this Osprey rucksack, a Raptor 10 that I've borrowed from Sean. It's really good. Normally I have the Om sack with me, but I do find that everything gathers at the bottom, and if it's not full, when it's full it's fantastic, when it's not full things move around a lot. This has definitely more compartments which add weight but are actually really useful when you're filming, because I've got my stuff in bags and I carry quite a lot of safety kit. I've got a bothy bag in there and I've got spare clothing, and it all fits really quite nicely. There's a little bit of an air gap, so my back's not getting sweaty, and it's not as wide, and that helps too. So I do rather like this. You nearly there yet?
This is always quite tricky, this sort of terrain where it's wet underfoot, muddy. You've got to keep enough weight on the bike so you don't slip. But the temptation is to stand on the pedals, and then you do slip. So you've got to get that right balance. Depends on tyre choice. Difficult to do it one-handed as well, but we'll get there.
Pretty obviously these are the wrong tyres for this terrain. I actually thought this was going to be a lot harder packed ground than it's turning out to be. So my very gravelly gravel tyres just don't really have the grip. View. My goodness, geology in action. That's not bad for our first ride. Thank you for bringing me here. It's a great view and very different to the sort of riding I'm used to doing.
Pleasure.
What's the downhill like?
We'll find out.
There are 3 usual descents from here. One is more suited to mountain bikes, one is longer than we have time for. We go back to Ben Buck and then down Silver Glen, and yes, there is a silver mine at the bottom, as well as some loose, tight, hairpin bends which need a bit of care. Mostly avoiding roads, we use back lanes and then a cycleway to head back to the start at Dollar. I've never really ridden in this part of the world before, and that was a great introduction. Reaching the highest point in the Ochils, it's going to be quite memorable. The most amazing thing is, we'll have been riding for almost 7 hours, and we've not been hanging around. We've been moving a lot faster than I normally do when I'm filming, and yet we'll have covered barely 23 miles. That's incredible really, but it shows how enthralling, how technical and how interesting good gravel riding can be, whether you're on a gravel bike or a mountain bike. If you've enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments, give me a thumbs up and subscribe, turn on the notifications, that will help enormously. And Sean and I might see you again very soon.